This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Gustav might have been downgraded to a tropical storm, but it continues to play a part at the Republicans' National Convention. Rob Reynolds has more now from St. Paul, Minnesota.
It is my honor to call to order the 39th Quadrennial Republican National Convention.
Little pomp and reduced circumstances as the Republican National Convention got underway in the shadow of Hurricane Gustav. The highlight of Monday's session, a speech by Cindy McCain, wife of nominee-to-be John McCain.
This is a time when we take off our Republican hats and put on our American hats.
McCain, meanwhile, was campaigning in Ohio, where he helped volunteers pack up hurricane cleanup supplies.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Republicans are making the best of the situation, hoping a show of public spiritedness over politics will help McCain's image.
He is a leader. He's been a leader for a long time. He's got a long service to his country, starting out in the United States Navy. And so this is an extension of the service that he's provided this country for a long time.
The hurricane has provided a plus for McCain. This stage will apparently not feature any personal appearances by President George Bush, one of the least popular presidents in modern American history. Bush's absence from St. Paul on the night he was supposed to make a speech, he was in Texas getting briefed on the hurricane instead, may be a disappointment to Democratic nominee Barack Obama, whose strategy is to link McCain to Bush in voters' minds. Some embarrassing news was disclosed Monday by McCain's running mate, Sarah Palin. The Alaska governor revealed her unmarried 17-year-old daughter, Bristol, is 5 months pregnant. Obama called the news irrelevant and said candidates' children should be off limits in politics.
And people's children are especially off limits.
But the news may disappoint some conservative strong proponents of traditional values who preach sexual abstinence before marriage. Other Republicans sought to minimize the fallout.
This could happen to the best of families, you know, kids will be kids and hormones will be hormones. And I think the important thing to the American people watching this, which they will be keenly, is it's dealt with honestly and openly, and that there isn't any hypocrisy about it.
McCain's choice of Palin, a governor for less than 2 years, has been criticized because she lacks any foreign affairs or national security experience. Convention plans are still in flux, but it seems likely McCain will make his acceptance speech here in St. Paul on Thursday, once the storm has passed. Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera, St. Paul, Minnesota.
Well, away from the storms and the party politics, demonstrators have taken to the streets of St. Paul to call for an end to the war in Iraq. But what began as a peaceful march ended with groups of protesters battling with riot police who arrested more than 100 people. Avi Lewis was there.
It felt like retribution time in St. Paul. In a city well known for its progressive politics, the Republican convention met a Minnesota welcoming committee. We've seen these protest pictures many times before. Masses of people symbolically marching, chanting, and waving placards. Smaller groups, often clad in black, swarming intersections, overturning dumpsters, breaking windows. But rarely do we hear much about the politics that inspire the more militant tactics. We took to the streets with a group of activists who expressed their dissent in direct action. They set out on Monday to block roads, hoping to shut down the convention.
There's this media spectacle that is happening at the Excel Center. And what they're doing in there is not people freely voting. It's what they're doing in there is kind of creating a spectacle that legitimizes a process of which a very few select few get put to rule a very large many, with the appearance that the many are choosing them, when it's really the other way around.
The actions spread across the city all day, from traditional marches to lockdown intersections to smashed windows. Police response was immediate and overwhelming. Inside the XL Center, the convention was unaffected by the protests, and delegates were less than impressed.
They busted my bus window. We went around the wrong intersection, so that crowd with all the black and the pink, they threw a brick in our window.
What'd you think of that?
Huh?
What'd you think of that?
I didn't like it, but you know, the police took care of it.
They want to have their party, go do it somewhere else. Let us have our party here.
If I remember right from reading it, they were self-proclaimed anarchists, and you know, they want to shut down the government, shut down everything, and reinstall their own type of government, which in itself would be kind of ridiculous, because then they would have to protest against themselves.
Well, among those detained was Amy Goodman, host of a popular radio show, Democracy Now! She told us about the moment she was arrested and charged.
They said interfering with a peace officer, and that's how they should have been behaving, maintaining the peace. But, you know, I was just here in the convention center 5 hours ago doing my job, interviewing delegates from Alaska and Minnesota, when I got the call that 2 of our producers had been arrested covering the protests outside. I raced to where they were to try to get them released. I went up to the line of riot police and I asked to speak to a commanding officer. Immediately, they took me, they grabbed me, they handcuffed me, and they demanded that I sit down on the ground. Then they took everything away. For a number of hours, I remained in the jail in the local garage, and then ultimately I was charged with a misdemeanor, which was obstructing legal process, interfering with a peace officer. The reason I'm wearing my credentials is to show you that I was wearing my credentials there. The police knew exactly who I was. I had the top security clearance to be here at the convention center, and I had my press ID for Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. They knew what they were doing. So did our producers have their ID with them. We cannot shut the eyes and ears of the press because they're the eyes and ears of the world. Al Jazeera certainly knows what it means to report in dangerous places. That should not be here in the United States.
On the second day of the holy month of Ramadan, fasting Muslims continue to pour into the markets. The crowded markets reflect people's joy in the holy month despite their limited budgets. Markets throughout the Islamic world are crowded with patrons. Ali and Abdallah takes us on a tour in some of these markets.
Soon after the full moon was sighted, marking the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan, markets in the West Bank region of Palestine were crowded with people who have been patiently waiting for Ramadan, the holy month for goodness and worship. People were buying the food necessities for their nightly dinner break-fast meals. Though some were concerned with the financial obligations during this month of bounty, the markets were filled with fresh fruits, vegetables, and meats. As we have been accustomed to seeing every year, people were bargaining for better prices. Similar scenes can also be seen in many other countries. In the Tunisian towns, especially in its old cities, there were more pedestrians than usual. Tunisians crowded the markets to buy the necessities of the holy month of Ramadan, which they view as an opportunity to keep the inherited traditions alive. The month of Ramadan is also an opportunity for Tunisians to mark their traditional Tunisian clothes. In addition, the sales of sweets, which can be found in a special place inside the old city, increased. Similar scenes can also be found in Pakistan's markets, which were full of colorful food and produce. Many kinds of dates were displayed in the markets, which were crowded with people who have been longing for this holy month. Piles of different traditional sweets were displayed. The unique smell of spices added the special flavor to this month, which, like every year, gives people an opportunity to appreciate the taste of food. May God accept our fast and help us enjoy delicious break-fast meals.
The UN has warned of a looming famine in Ethiopia caused by the drought witnessed in the country, threatening the lives of millions of people unless immediate relief is summoned to the region.
The UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, John Holmes, said that 4 million Ethiopians need emergency assistance and 8 million others need immediate food and medical assistance.
Has Galabo, one of the millions of Ethiopians searching for what's left of a crop that was hit hard by the drought. We are left with no food except for the little supply the government is providing us. This is what Galabo, the Ethiopian farmer, said while describing the situation. He further said that the crisis is less of a famine, but more of a food shortage. The UN said that children are the most affected by the food crisis in Ethiopia. According to the UN, more than 4 million need emergency assistance, and 8 million others need immediate food and medical assistance. The international organization said, in terms of the urgency of the food crisis, the risk of children dying of severe malnutrition is the most urgent.
In international standards, this is one of the most urgent and persisting situations because many infants are facing severe malnutrition.
Ethiopia's fear over the food shortage is further fueled by the weak international response.
The support that we are getting from the international community is not too bad, but it's not enough, especially considering the amount of food supplies to the children.
According to UN estimates, the amount of international response to its latest pleas stands at 52%, which means that aid is not reaching everyone. This news comes amidst growing fear by Ethiopians who don't want to relive the painful famine that rocked the country during the 1980s, causing millions of fatalities.
Meanwhile, displaced Somalis in the city of Kismayo in southern Somalia are living under harsh conditions due to the absence of relief agencies and the deteriorating situation.
Some of the displaced were forced to leave the Somali capital due to the continuing fighting in Mogadishu.
Somalis are facing many tragedies due to the ongoing fighting, which has forced many residents to leave their homes. The city of Kismayo is overrun by thousands of displaced people whose lives are filled with pain and suffering. This comes after the departure of humanitarian workers from southern Somalia, prompting the human rights institutions there to call on the authorities to meet their obligations.
These people here rarely receive supplies because the areas they live in are under United Nations ban. We are pleading to the international community to send aid to the displaced due to the food shortages in the area.
In these so-called homes, many of the displaced Somalis are living. They are living amidst the nightmares of hunger and in the shadows of fear, especially in the absence of a country to unite them and a generous hand to save them from the tragedies of hunger.
We don't have anything. This is the 4th time I became displaced. I don't have anything to live on. We're living under harsh conditions.
Maimouna is one of the thousands of Somalis facing exhaustion while searching for a safe and decent life. After the journey of displacement from the Somali capital Mogadishu, Maimouna relocated to this camp, where she is living under painful conditions and amidst deprivation.
We are very vulnerable. We don't have food or shelter. We are experiencing harsh living and health conditions.
While most of the Islamic world has welcomed with joy the holy month of Ramadan, these displaced individuals received it with nothing in hand. They're waiting for someone to save them from the nightmare of hunger. The holy month of Ramadan comes this year while thousands of Somalis are living under the threats of poverty, hunger, and displacement, hoping that the Islamic world will pay attention to their growing suffering and work to help resolve, if even a small part of their tragedy.
العلاقات بين إيران ودول الجوار هي علاقات مبنية على مبدأ حسن الجوار وعدم التدخل.
The relations between Iran and neighboring countries are relations based on the good neighbor principle and non-intervention in internal affairs. This statement came from the official spokesman of the Iranian foreign minister, Hassan Kashkawi. Kashkawi confirmed that in the previous years, bilateral steps were taken under the framework of developing relations with these countries, through meetings that were held between senior Iranian officials with their counterparts in the region, to firm and strengthen the good relations with neighboring countries. The Iranian spokesman indicated that the United Arab Emirates is currently the largest trade partner in the region. Tehran is also continuing to exchange views with the Gulf Cooperation Council in order to strengthen stability and security in the region.
Iran, through their foreign ministry spokesman Hassan Kashkawi, reconfirmed its deep relations with its Gulf neighbors, and that the consultations and the exchange of views between Iranian leaders and Gulf countries are helping to deepen relations between the two sides and settle the crisis in the region.
Iran and the Gulf Cooperation Council have a serious will to expand relations, remove any misunderstandings, and make efforts to strengthen continued cooperation at the political, cultural, and economic levels.
Despite everything that Iran has said about its good relations with the Gulf countries, it is still unable to settle the crisis of the three islands with the country that it is considered to be its first trading partner in the region.
In our talks between Iran and the Emirates regarding the issue of the three islands, we confirmed from the beginning that the only way to proceed is through transparent bilateral discussions. Certainly, any international complaint, the presence of any foreign country, or their interference in this issue will not help settle this crisis and remove ambiguity by both sides.
The contradictory signs by Tehran, its deploying of subs to the Strait of Hormuz, the deployment of other Republican Guards forces, and the strengthening of its weapons and missile capabilities is creating doubts in the region regarding the sincerity of Iranian intentions and the extent of Iran's stated commitment to the position that the security of the Gulf countries is part of Iran's security.
The Islamic Republic of Iran has proved that it is not an authoritarian regime and does not covet other countries' lands or resources. It also would never initiate war and wants to live in peace with its Gulf neighbors.
According to the latest statements by Iranian military leaders, any war against their country would lead to a world war, and Tehran will strike at the interests of the attackers in all parts of the world, and will use secret weapons that have not been revealed yet. This has stirred fears among the Gulf countries regarding the capabilities of the growing Iranian military. With all this, Iran continues to reiterate that it is using its attack capabilities only in the framework of its own defense. Meanwhile, Tehran appears to have maintained deep relations with its Gulf neighbors and worked towards settling stalled conflict issues through bilateral relations away from the influence of other forces and intervention. Ahmed Amin for Al Madar, Tehran.
كشف مسؤولون عسكريون أمريكيون وعراقيون اليوم أن فتى عمره أقل.
A 15-year-old boy exploded himself yesterday in the middle of a gathering of Al-Sahwa, or the Awakening Forces. The target of the attack was Sheikh Imad al-Mishdani. The Pentagon released a statement saying that the young boy is 12 to 15 years of age. He was wearing an explosive belt when he blew himself up. Sheikh Mishdani was injured, and one of the people accompanying him was killed.
ووقع 7 آخرون جرحى.
After Hamas took over Gaza, armed groups started emerging. Al-Ummah Army is one of these groups. It is an armed Salafi group that was established 8 months ago based on the ideologies of bin Laden's Al-Qaeda. The Al-Ummah Army refuses to disclose the number of its members in Gaza. Hamas allows this organization to operate in Gaza based on a verbal agreement so long it does not intervene in the Palestinian internal politics and refrains from using force to impose its religious beliefs in Gaza. One of the organization's leaders said that Al-Ummah Army is not part of Al-Qaeda, though it shares the same religious ideology. The organization's funding comes from private donations in Gaza. The number of Al-Qaeda affiliated groups have increased in the Gaza Strip after it fell under Hamas's control.
Defence Minister El Barak today confirmed reports that Israel's defence establishment foiled 5 recent attempts by Hezbollah to kidnap Israeli businessmen abroad. A senior security source was quoted as saying that the attempted kidnappings were part of a concentrated effort by Hezbollah, backed by Iran, to kidnap Israelis in retaliation for the assassination of top Hezbollah operative Imad Mughniyeh, for which Hezbollah blames Israel. Defense Minister Barak, touring an artillery base in the Negev, also said that the ceasefire in Gaza gives negotiations for the release of kidnapped IDF soldier Gilad Shalit a chance to succeed. Today marks the 800th day since Gilad Shalit was taken hostage, and friends of the Shalit family stepped up their effort to seek Gilad's release. In a letter to the Prime Minister, they wrote that bringing the soldier home is part of Israel's core values, not a price to be paid, and that Prime Minister Olmert must be guided by his conscience. Gilad's mother, Aviva, today accused Hamas of using her son as a human shield.
Hamas political boss Khaled Mashal has left Damascus to live in Sudan. This according to a Kuwaiti newspaper that claims the move came at Syria's request and stems from a desire by Damascus to advance direct peace talks with Israel. Hamas officials in Gaza denied the report, which it called misinformation designed to drive a wedge between Syria and Hamas. Sources in Jerusalem said if the story is true, it reflects a sincere wish on the part of Syria to move the peace process forward. One of Israel's key demands in the indirect talks with Syria is that Damascus break off its contacts with Palestinian terror groups in general and Mashal and Hamas in particular.
Following a recommendation by the ministerial cabinet, Baghdad's municipalities have partnered in a project to distribute land in the capital's suburbs to displaced Iraqi families. 30 million Iraqi dinars and mortgage loans will be made available to martyrs' families in order to help them build residential units. More details from our reporter, Mutada Mohammed.
The number of Iraqis subjected to hardship is very large. The families of martyrs have suffered for years. Large numbers of Iraqis are deprived from basic human rights, such as the right to own a home and receive basic services. Iraqis who are returning to their homeland after years of exile hope to have a decent home.
My son was martyred while he was on duty. He left on Tuesday. When he did not come back on Wednesday, we went to look for him. We found his body on Haifa Street. We received his death certificate from Jafar Center, and we went to Al-Adli Medical Center to claim his body.
I'm one of the exiled Iraqis who returned to our beloved homeland. My family and I returned from Germany. Before we came back to Iraq, we received a piece of land. I don't know if this piece of land has services or not, and I don't know if we can live on it or not.
Baghdad municipalities partnered in a project to distribute plots of land located in the capital suburbs to displaced Iraqi families on recommendations by the ministerial cabinet. 30 million Iraqi dinars, in addition to mortgage loans, will be made available to the families of the martyrs in order to help them build residential units.
The municipality of Baghdad and its city council have a joint strategy aimed at giving a great deal of attention to Baghdad's suburbs. We have built public services there, and God willing, these projects will be completed in a short time in order to help civilians live in Baghdad's suburbs. This will ease the crowdedness in central Baghdad.
We are not satisfied with what we have been giving to Iraqi families. We have bigger ambitions. God willing, we will succeed in surveying and compensating our people, especially the oppressed segment of our population. The compensations are small when compared to the great sacrifices they have made. Only God the Great can compensate them for what they went through.
Although this initiative does not include all the displaced families and the relatives of the martyrs, it remains a good initiative. But it needs to be expanded so more Iraqis can obtain land. Also, public services must be made available in Baghdad's suburbs so people can build their homes there.
رغم
Despite the rapid trend of modernization and development witnessed in the Jordanian capital Amman, and despite the growing sentiment against anything considered old and traditional, there appears to be some businesses resisting the change. In fact, they're continuing to conduct business as usual, as they've done many decades ago. Among these businesses are traditional coffee shops, which continue to bring back beautiful memories from the past.
The heart of Amman, where modernization is targeting old buildings, is still beating with rhythms from the past. This transformation trend, which targeted many old buildings, has not yet been able to alter the glamorous look and aromatic scent of popular coffee shops in central Amman. These coffee shops are here to stay and bear witness to testimonies of historical figures, politicians, and scholars. Today, some members of the older generation continue to come here to converse, play cards or chess, or just to smoke hookahs with the voice of their favorite singer, Kulthum, blaring in the background.
I long to see everyone coming to the cafe wearing tarbushes. The time when we used to see bashas wearing tarbushes is long gone. Of course, times and living conditions have changed.
Jafra is a place where one could find a sense of belonging, meet with their loved ones, or just enjoy a good cup of coffee. It's also a place where artists, poets, and scholars come to unwind. The clientele of Jafra come here to reflect back on the memories of their ancestors, who took part in building the old city of Amman.
Traditional coffee shops are much cozier than modern ones. They reflect back on our heritage and tell us about the way people used to live.
The environment this place offers and the type of people it attracts helps you to relax.
Various neighborhoods of the Jordanian capital, Amman, are witnessing rapid development, in which many coffee shops are transformed into internet and entertainment cafes. This disparity is evident to the visitors of Amman, where some are calling on preserving the beauty of the past and others are looking for a change easily found in the world of modernization. Paying attention to the past and remembering the history, legacy, and the pride of our nation is the reason why this young generation is continuing to visit and patronize traditional coffee shops. This is important as modern cafes continue to lose their sense of social responsibility, especially with the popularity of the internet and the fast pace of life.
Hi, I'm Ana Cuevas, journalist and host of Link TV's Latin Pulse. I want to thank all of you who have answered our call during Mosaic's fundraising drive. We're a third of the way to our goal, but we still have a ways to go. Mosaic is nearly 90% viewer supported. That means without your help, this program cannot continue. We need to raise $200,000 by the fall to pay for another 6 months of broadcast. We've done it before with your help, so I know we can do it again. Please call the number on your screen. That's 1-866-485-8848. Or you can donate with your credit card online at linktv.org. Just log on and click on the big green support button. Or track Mosaic's fundraising progress with our fundraising thermometer. You can click on that image and then donate to push us closer to our goal. Over the last 7 years, Mosaic was able to blossom, even under a presidential administration that held a tight control over TV coverage of conflict in the Middle East. That's because it's a completely independent program. Unlike commercial TV outlets and even many PBS stations, we don't accept any corporate money. On Link TV, you won't see advertisements for SUVs, for oil companies, or defense contractors. We are truly viewer supporter, thanks to you. But without your funds, this program could vanish, and that would spell the end of this unique window into news from the Middle East. From the U.S. invasion of Iraq to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict to increasing tension between Iran and Western powers, Mosaic offers you a Middle Eastern perspective on the events shaping the 21st century. Won't you please help us keep Mosaic going strong? The number again is 1-866-485-8848, or you can donate online at linktv.org. And thank you for making Link TV and Mosaic such an important addition to the media landscape.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.